Ladies and gentlemen, you ever look around and see someone standing there like they're all by themselves, but you know deep down it's not just physical solitude they're dealing with? Nah, I'm talking about that kind of isolation where the heart is heavy, the mind is restless, and the silence speaks louder than any crowd ever could. Now, I want you to understand something. This ain't just about being alone. Everybody's alone sometimes. You wake up, you go through your day, maybe you don't have people around, but that's not loneliness, not really. Loneliness is when you feel like nobody sees you. Loneliness is when you've been around so many folks that you start questioning if they really see you or if they just see a mask you put on. And for a woman, yeah, I'm talking to the ladies here, it's like there's this weight, this pressure, not just to be seen, but to be liked, to be loved, to be understood. And when that's missing, when it feels like nobody's got your back, it hits different. But here's the truth, she ain't weak. Nah, she ain't defeated. She's just trying to figure it all out. The world tells you a woman's supposed to be this, supposed to be this, supposed to be that. The world tells you if you don't have a squad of people around you, then something is wrong with you. But let me tell you something, the fact that she's standing tall, carrying on, even with no one by her side, that right there shows strength. There's a certain kind of resilience that comes with walking that lonely road. She's learned how to hold her own, how to stand in the storm when the winds are howling and the rain's coming down like nobody cares. She's learned how to keep her head high when the world around her seems to be spinning in chaos. Because sometimes the hardest battles are fought in silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is keep going when there ain't no applause, no cheering crowd, just her and her faith in herself. But don't get it twisted. Just because she's alone don't mean she's not worthy of connection. It doesn't mean she's broken. We've all been there fighting our own demons, dealing with our own struggles, wondering if we're ever going to be seen for who we truly are. And maybe that woman hasn't found her tribe yet, but trust me, there's a tribe out there for her. There's a circle of people waiting to see her for the warrior she is, waiting to stand by her side, waiting to build her up the way she deserves. And in the meantime, maybe she's learning the most important thing, how to be her own friend. Because there's power in that too. You see, when you've walked through the fire and come out stronger on the other side, you start to realize that you don't need anyone to define you. You start to understand that the only person who really needs to believe in you is you. And when you believe in yourself, when you stand tall in your own skin, the world starts to take notice. So to the woman with no friends, keep going. Keep being who you are. Don't let the world convince you that you're less than. You are worthy. You are powerful. And when the right people come into your life, when they finally see you for who you are, those friendships will mean something real. Until then, keep walking. Keep believing. Keep being your own friend. Because you've got everything you need to win, even when it feels like you've got nothing. Loneliness is often misunderstood. In a world that constantly celebrates social connections, community, and belonging, being alone is seen as a flaw, a defect, something to be pitied. But loneliness does not equate to weakness. In fact, the woman who walks through life without a crowd of people around her, without a close circle of friends, often carries a strength that is rarely acknowledged. She may appear alone, but she is not defeated. In many ways, the solitude she faces forces her to tap into reserves of inner power that many never even realize they have. Loneliness, when viewed through the lens of self-reflection, can be a crucible for personal growth. There's an inherent discomfort in being alone. It's quiet, it's still, and sometimes it feels as though the world around you is moving while you're stuck, standing still. But in that space of solitude, she can find clarity. There is a certain kind of strength in walking alone because in the absence of others, she is forced to confront herself, her fears, her dreams, her insecurities, and her desires. She is forced to ask hard questions, to dig deep, to understand who she really is and what she truly wants out of life. And the more she confronts her own reflection, the more she learns to trust herself. She may not have a group of friends who call her every day or a network of people who surround her at every turn, but she has the most important thing of all, her own resilience. It's easy for anyone to feel lonely when they don't have someone else to lean on. It's easy to feel like something's wrong when you're not constantly surrounded by people who validate your existence. But here's the truth, loneliness doesn't mean weakness, it means she's independent. It means she's walking through life on her own terms without depending on others to feel complete. There's a quiet, powerful autonomy in that. She's not defined by the number of people in her life, but by how well she can stand on her own. In fact, it often takes far more strength to be alone than to rely on others. In a world that constantly tells women they need to be loved, supported, and adored, it can feel like a personal failure if they don't have a circle of friends or close relationships. But in reality, a woman with no friends is not incomplete. She's simply on her own journey, navigating the complexities of life without the noise of others' expectations. And while human connection is important, it's crucial to recognize that her worth is not diminished by the absence of it. She is still whole. She still has value. Her life, her worth, and her purpose are not dependent on whether or not she has people around her to validate that. A woman with no friends is often forced to build a foundation of strength that comes from within. She has no crutches to lean on, no one to run to when things get tough. She learns to face her challenges alone, and in doing so, she becomes more resilient, more resourceful, and more self-reliant. She learns the value of self-love, how to comfort herself in times of hardship, and how to keep moving forward when the world seems quiet and indifferent. She may not have the external validation that comes from friendship, but she learns to validate herself. She learns to believe in her own strength, and that belief becomes the cornerstone of her ability to face whatever comes next. So no, loneliness is not weakness, it's not a sign of defeat. It's simply a different way of walking through life, one that requires a level of inner strength that many never need to cultivate. And in that quiet solitude, she becomes her own hero. The pressure of expectations is something every woman feels, whether she's surrounded by people or standing alone. It's a constant hum in the background telling her she should be a certain way, look a certain way, and most importantly, be loved, adored, and understood by others. There's this belief in society that no woman can truly thrive unless she has a network of friends to share her life with, to lean on, to laugh and cry with. And if she doesn't have that, if she finds herself isolated or without close relationships, she's often made to feel like she's missing something, as though there's a piece of the puzzle of life that she just hasn't figured out yet. The truth is, this pressure isn't just external, it's internal too. It creeps in from every direction: the stories we hear in movies, the images we see on social media, the expectations placed on women by family, friends, and even by themselves. When a woman is without friends, it's easy to feel like she's falling short, like she's somehow not living up to the ideal. After all, we live in a world where we're constantly told that we need to be surrounded by people to be happy. The idea of friendship is so ingrained in our culture, the assumption that it is a natural part of a fulfilled life, that when a woman doesn't have it, she can feel incomplete. It becomes harder to escape that nagging feeling that something is wrong, even when, in reality, nothing is. But here's the thing: these pressures are built on flawed assumptions. The belief that a woman is somehow less valuable because she doesn't have a close circle of friends doesn't hold up to scrutiny. The fact is, friendships are not a requirement for a fulfilling life. There are countless reasons why someone might not have a tight-knit group of friends. Maybe they've been let down too many times. Maybe they haven't found the right people. Or maybe they simply don't need the validation that friendships often bring. And while it's easy to internalize that sense of inadequacy, it's vital to challenge it. A woman doesn't need to conform to societal expectations of friendship to prove her worth or her happiness. The truth is, the absence of close friendships doesn't mean she's any less capable of thriving. If anything, it often means that she's had to become more self-reliant, more introspective, and more resilient. She's had to learn how to navigate the world without a built-in support system, and that is a powerful thing. It takes an extraordinary amount of strength to walk through life without that external reassurance, to keep showing up each day when there's no one else around to applaud her efforts. This kind of independence, though often unrecognized, is a form of inner strength that not everyone is able to cultivate. Moreover, the lack of friends forces her to redefine what connection means. It challenges the traditional notion that our worth is validated only by others. She has the opportunity to build a relationship with herself that is deeper and more meaningful than any friendship could ever be. In a way, she learns to be the kind of friend she wishes she had. She becomes her own source of support, her own confidante. And through that, she discovers the most important truth: her happiness does not depend on the number of people around her, but on her own ability to find peace, strength, and joy within herself. It's time to let go of the myth that a woman's worth is measured by her relationships with others. Society may insist on certain norms, but the truth is that a woman who walks alone isn't broken, isn't less than, and isn't incomplete. She is simply walking her own path, one that doesn't require validation from others to prove its value. And in doing so, she finds the most authentic version of herself. She finds the strength to stand tall, even when the world around her is busy telling her she should be something else. When we think of strength, we often envision someone who can fight through challenges with the help of others, someone who can rely on a strong support system to lift them up when times get tough. But strength takes on a different form for a woman who has no friends, a woman who must navigate life largely on her own. It's not the kind of strength you see on the outside, not the kind of strength you can measure by how loud or confident someone seems. It's the quiet strength, the kind that holds her together when there's no one around to reassure her. It's the strength that grows in the absence of others, in the stillness of solitude when no one's looking. In the absence of a support system, a woman learns how to rely on herself. She learns to be her own rock, her own source of comfort and stability. When she doesn't have friends to lean on, she figures out how to stand on her own 2 feet. She has no choice but to learn how to navigate the highs and lows of life without the crutch of external validation. In doing so, she becomes more resourceful, more introspective, more in tune with herself. It's easy for anyone to feel overwhelmed or lost when there's no one to talk to, no one to turn to when things get tough. But a woman without friends learns that she is capable of more than she ever thought possible. She doesn't wait for someone else to pick her up or make her feel better. She figures out how to do that for herself. It's not always easy. It's often painful. But the process of learning to depend on yourself builds a sense of inner strength that can never be taken away. This inner strength doesn't come from the absence of challenges, but from her ability to face them head on, even when there's no one around to witness it. She learns how to comfort herself, how to dig deep, and how to keep going when the world seems indifferent. There's an immense power in walking through difficult times alone and realizing that you can survive them on your own. When life knocks her down, she doesn't crumble under the weight of loneliness. She rises up. She fights through the pain, through the quiet, through the uncertainty. She learns that her strength isn't determined by who's standing beside her, but by the resilience she carries within herself. That doesn't mean it's always easy. No one, no matter how strong they are, can avoid feeling lonely from time to time. It's human to want connection, to want someone to share your joys and sorrows with. But a woman without friends is learning to find peace in the stillness, to find joy in her own company, and to trust that even though the world may not always provide the companionship she craves, she can still find fulfillment within herself. The process of being alone can teach her how to become her own best friend. She begins to cultivate a relationship with herself that goes deeper than any friendship could ever go. And when that happens, when she learns to find strength within her own heart, she becomes a force to be reckoned with. She becomes the kind of person who doesn't need the validation of others to know her worth. She doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. She understands that her value doesn't come from being surrounded by people, but from her ability to stand firm in who she is, to believe in her own abilities, and to love herself even in the hardest moments. She may not have the kind of friendship society tells her she needs, but what she has is something far more powerful: a deep, unshakable confidence in herself. And that, my friends, is a kind of strength that cannot be underestimated. The worth of a woman is often measured by the relationships she has, the people who surround her, the friendships she nurtures, and the love she receives. In many ways, society's standards define a woman's value by how she connects with others, by the network she builds, and by the way she participates in the world around her. The woman with no friends, however, challenges this assumption in the most profound way. Her life doesn't fit neatly into the model of how a woman should exist, yet that doesn't mean she is any less valuable. In fact, it's when she's walking alone that she often learns the deepest lessons about her own worth. When there are no friendships to anchor her, the woman must learn to be her own anchor. She has to define herself without relying on the validation of others. She can't seek refuge in a group or turn to familiar faces for reassurance when life becomes overwhelming. Instead, she's forced to dig deeper, to reach inside herself for the strength to carry on. And in that search for inner strength, she finds something invaluable in understanding that her worth isn't defined by others, but by who she is at her core. She learns that her existence is not dependent on the approval or companionship of others. In the silence of her solitude, she discovers that she is enough, that her value comes from within and is not contingent on any external validation. Without the external noise of friendship, she also has the space to reflect, to grow, and to evolve. When life is busy and filled with the demands of social interactions, it's easy to get lost in the expectations and roles others place on us. But when a woman doesn't have a close group of friends, she has the rare opportunity to focus solely on her own development. She's not worried about meeting others' needs or fulfilling a role that someone else expects her to play. Instead, she's free to be herself, to learn more about what makes her tick, to pursue her passions without distraction. And this process of self-discovery is a form of empowerment. She can explore new interests, take risks, and follow her intuition without the fear of judgment or the need to compromise. There's a unique clarity that comes from walking alone. Without the constant input of other people's opinions, she can better understand her own desires, boundaries, and goals. She learns what truly matters to her and what doesn't, which relationships are worth investing in and which ones are better left behind. It's easy to stay in relationships, whether they're friendships, romantic partnerships, or family ties, out of obligation or the need to conform. But the woman without friends has the freedom to examine those connections with greater objectivity. She isn't weighed down by the expectations of others, and because of that, she has the power to build a life that truly reflects who she is, not who others think she should be. However, this journey of self-reliance is not without its struggles. At times, it's hard not to feel the sting of loneliness, the longing for companionship, and the desire to be understood. It's natural to crave connection and to feel a sense of isolation when there's no one to turn to for comfort. But it's precisely in those moments that she grows stronger. Loneliness, while painful, teaches resilience. It teaches that pain is temporary and that even when you feel alone, you are never truly alone. The woman who walks through life without friends develops a sense of inner peace that comes from knowing she can rely on herself, that she can endure the tough moments and come out stronger on the other side. And when the right people do come into her life, when she eventually forms connections that are built on mutual respect and understanding, she will appreciate them even more. Because she's learned how to be complete on her own, she will enter relationships as a whole person, not someone looking to be fixed or defined by someone else. She will enter with a sense of clarity, of confidence, and of self-respect that will make her relationships richer and more meaningful. So to the woman who has no friends, to the one who sometimes feels invisible in a world that constantly tells her she should be surrounded by people, know that your value is not determined by the company you keep. You are not incomplete. You are not lacking. You are simply on a different path, one that requires you to find strength within yourself, to learn and grow in ways that others may never understand. But that strength, that self-reliance, will be the foundation for a life of independence, resilience, and true fulfillment. And in the end, that's the kind of life that is far richer and more meaningful than any friendship could ever offer. In a world that often glorifies companionship and social circles, there is a silent strength in the woman who finds herself without friends. It's easy to believe that a person's worth is measured by the number of friends they have, the social circles they belong to, or the constant validation they receive from others. But for a woman walking without the presence of close friends, the path she treads is one of deep personal discovery and strength. She is not lacking because she doesn't have a group of people around her. Rather, she is cultivating something far more significant: independence, self-reliance, and resilience. It's a quiet strength, one that doesn't always show up in loud ways or in public displays, but one that grows within the solitude of her existence. Living without friends requires a woman to learn how to face the world on her own. She has no one to turn to for advice, no one to share her wins with, and no one to console her in moments of hardship. There are no backup systems, no shoulders to cry on, and no one waiting for her when she falls. In many ways, this solitude forces her to develop an inner strength that is unmatched by any external support. Without a community to lean on, she learns to be her own anchor, finding the resources within herself to deal with both the highs and lows of life. It is a process of self-reliance that can't be rushed or manufactured. It is earned, built slowly through facing challenges and overcoming them without anyone else's help. Being without friends may feel isolating at times, but in that isolation lies the opportunity to discover who she truly is, without the influence or opinions of others. In a world that is constantly telling women how to behave, what to wear, and who they should be, the woman who is alone has the rare chance to break free from those societal pressures. She is no longer bound by the expectations of a social group or by the desire to conform to the roles that others may want her to play. Instead, she has the space to create her own identity, to redefine herself according to her own terms. Without the noise of social validation, she is free to listen to her own voice, to trust her intuition, and to pursue her passions without the fear of judgment. She becomes the author of her own story, learning what she truly values, what excites her, and what brings her peace. In moments of loneliness, when the desire for companionship feels overwhelming, the woman without friends has an opportunity to reflect on the kind of relationship she truly needs. She is no longer swept up in the whirlwind of social obligations or superficial connections. Instead, she can take a step back and examine the friendships she has had in the past, what worked, what didn't, and why. This introspection allows her to define what she wants in a relationship and what kind of people she wants to allow into her life. The absence of friends does not make her incomplete, rather, it empowers her to be more discerning about who she allows into her inner circle. She learns that quality matters far more than quantity, and that the right people, the ones who will truly understand and support her, are worth waiting for. Another powerful realization that comes with being alone is the ability to become your own best friend. In the absence of external validation, the woman without friends learns to validate herself. She learns how to comfort herself when she's feeling down, how to celebrate her accomplishments without waiting for applause, and how to love herself in the way she deserves to be loved. This self-love doesn't come easily. It's a process, one that involves facing fears, acknowledging pain, and embracing the imperfection of being human. But when she learns to be her own greatest ally, she no longer depends on others to fill her emotional cup. She becomes whole within herself, understanding that true fulfillment doesn't come from the validation of others, but from the deep and abiding love she has for herself. Moreover, the woman without friends learns that loneliness is not an enemy to be feared. It's an opportunity for growth, an invitation to step into the space where she can finally hear her own voice, follow her own path, and be the person she was always meant to be. There is no rush, no need to fill the empty spaces with distractions. In the silence of solitude, she finds the clarity to see her life for what it truly is and what it can be. She learns that loneliness is not a reflection of her worth, but rather an essential part of the journey towards self-discovery and self-love. And when the time comes when the right people enter her life, she will bring with her a sense of completeness that others will recognize and appreciate. She will not need to be saved or fixed. She will enter relationships as a whole person, confident in her own identity and unafraid to stand tall in her own light. The friendships she forms will be rich with meaning, built on mutual respect and understanding, because she will no longer settle for relationships that don't nurture her growth. To the woman with no friends, know this: you are not less. You are simply learning to be more. You are walking a path that leads you toward the most powerful version of yourself. And when you finally reach it, you will know that your strength has come not from the people around you, but from the person you've become.